Yeah, 935 KDay, Noah at night. And this is an interview that I've been wanting to do for a really long time because you remember when Slick Rick used to talk about the art of storytelling? I feel like this man, both as an MC lyrically, but also just in just a verbal form when you have a conversation with him, has mastered that art. Hip hop pioneer, originator.
I hate pioneer, by the way.
Do you?
Makes me sound like I lived in a log cabin and like had a fireplace.
But you are, man. You
know,
set the way for a lot of these artists. A lot of things wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for you.
That's not true. Like
it's true.
No.
Let me say his name first, and I'm gonna tell him why he's wrong.
Okay.
MC Serch of Third Base. Serch.
Hello,
and I don't want to just limit you to third base because I mean you've done so much in this game that
Thank you.
You know it's crazy. What's up, man?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good.
How come you hate the word pioneer?
Like I said, man, I feel like it makes me sound like I'm 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like people place pioneer in a box.
I can feel that. I can feel that.
And when I think pioneer, I think of artists who are salty and jaded and feel like they're not really getting theirs, and they're like mad at the new artists and they want to diss people, and that's not who I am. That's not my energy. Like I like Little Mosey, I like Young Dolph, I like Perp, I like music, and I like artists that are pushing whatever boundaries are out there. And I like understanding where they're coming from and where their struggle is. I like people that are living their life and shooting their shot. And I'm not going to be one of these dudes that's going to be like, G-Eazy owes his career to me. Like G-Eazy was more influenced by E40 and Mac Dre, may he rest in peace, than he ever was by Third Base or us, because he just wasn't born.
Right,
That's a
good point.
So it's like, the influence is based on where you come from. It's not based on, I was a white rapper, so then House of Pain were white rappers, and then Nonfiction were white rappers, and then Eminem was white rapper. That's nonsense. That's crazy. That's like
But you did knock down doors, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had no choice. We had no choice because there was no motherfucking white people around. The only white people you saw at parties back in the day were police. There were no white people around. So, yes, we had to knock down doors because we had no choice. You know what I'm saying? There was no other influences before us except for the dudes that we were watching, Brand Nubian, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, so those are NWA. Like, those were the things that were the gel, whereas the connective tissue to us wanting to do what we did. So we had no choice but to knock down those walls.
Right. Now, when you first got in the game, what even made you, want to get into hip-hop? Like, I know, when you got in the game, hip-hop was relatively new still, but what made you say, yo, man, I want to do that, and then start hanging out at the parties and getting involved in hip-hop?
So I'm from Far Rockaway, Queens, RIP Stack Bundles, RIP Chinks. That was, the Redfern Projects is my hood. Mm-hmm. So even though my mom and dad lived in, a nice little college house around the corner, all my friends that I went to public school with, they lived in Redfern. So I would go and hang out with my friends in Redfern, and then we all grew up together, because it was one of these neighborhoods where you went to middle school and you went to elementary school. We all went together. And the music that we listened to was these basement tapes when we got into middle school of these block parties, because people.
Now, what year are we talking? Because I'm fascinated. I'm 35, right?
Right.
So I'm fascinated though by the early beginnings of hip hop. I'm talking late 70s, early to mid 80s.
So I it's what people bug out about more than anything else. I think is that rap there was no rap radio. So there was no hip hop business.
Right.
There was no recorded music. There was no produced music. There was no programming. There was no mix show. There was no DJ. There was no station. There was no advertisers. There were cassette tapes of dudes rocking parties, and that was it.
Right.
And we would get because we were in Far Rockaway, and we used to call Far Rockaway Alcatraz because there was only one way on and one way off. We weren't going to the parties in Brooklyn. We weren't going to the parties in the Bronx. So we would get third and fourth generation cassette tapes of Crash Crew and all of this. And for me, my favorite.
These are just like a recording of tapes that
right.
somebody recorded at a party.
Right.
So they might have
right.
just put like the microphone or the recorder to the
No,
speaker
there was
somewhere.
always so the DJs always they were recording all of their shit anyway.
Right.
So you would have the dudes that were rocking the parties, DJ Hollywood, Kango Crew, they would always be like, yo, DJ, put my cassette in when I start rocking. So then they would get a cassette, and the cassette was really, like you said, it was basically the speaker and a mic to a cassette box, like from Radio Shack.
Damn, that's
and then,
so crazy.
And then they would make copies of that and give it to their boys, and then, it would, and so on and so on and so on. So by the time it got to us, it was like fourth, fifth, sixth generation. It sounded like this. But there was one crew that even fifth generation, there was this one crew called Kango Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved them kids because, like, they were from Brooklyn, and I knew, like, where they were from because my people were from there. And they always had these really fly skits, Hillbilly Girl, and, like, they were talking about girls that they would fuck her so hard that she would start making hillbilly noises, an Indian girl, and, like, they always
What's
had
a
these
hillbilly
really
noise?
Yo, like yodeling or some shit, right?
If hold on. If you fuck a girl so hard she yodels?
Yeah, like that. One of the dudes
down,
would say
man.
that, like, yeah, like it was. So that was I liked it. Like I was just, those dudes were like, right. So when I was graduating middle school, I did not want to go to Far Rock High School.
Right.
So the only chance I had to get out of Far Rockaway was to try out for these what they call public privates, where basically they were specialized schools in the 5 boroughs, where one was like Stuyvesant, which was specially in math.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was Bronx Science, which was obviously science. And then there was Performing Arts that just had a movie come out called Fame, where it was about like the Performing Arts High School. And then there was Music and Art on 135th and Convent in Harlem. And my mother, may she rest in peace, went to that high school. And my aunt went to that high school. So my mom and my aunt were like, well, you should try out for that high school. So I did, and I got in. I was like the only, I think 2 kids at that point in the history of my whole middle school got into that school. So I go on the train. First class is like 8:22 in the morning. So from Far Rockaway to 135th and Convent is 2 hours and 22 minutes on the subway. Damn. So I would be on the train. I get to Convent, and then you walk up 250 steps, St. Nicholas Hill to it looked like a castle on the hill. That's what we called it. And I went in there, and I went downstairs, and I went into the basement for orientation, and I saw these dudes all around a table. Dudes were, beating on the table. And there was a dude beatboxing and all of this. And then all of a sudden, I started hearing these dudes doing Hillbilly Girl. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, oh, they know the words to Hillbilly Girl.
Right. I know it's been crazy back then because it's like, you know the same shit I know.
Right. So I stood on the table and I'm watching these dudes. And they're rocking. They got these fly furry Kangos, and they got the Latigra buttoned up, same color. And they got the creased Lees, and they got like Pumas on, same color. I'm like, wow, they are fresh. And I go to this dude next to me. I'm like, yo, those dudes sound like the Kango Crew. And this dude looked at me. He said, white boy, that is the fucking Kango Crew. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And the Kango Crew was Lance and Omega, and it was Dana Dane and Ricky D, who became Slick Rick. And the dude who was beatboxing was Dougie Fresh.
Damn.
And sitting next to him was J. Cool from the Fresh 3 MCs, who came out with a big record at the end of my high school called Fresh. Mm-hmm. And I was writing little rhymes or whatever, but like I said, there was no white boys rhyming. It was black culture. It was a multicultural art form. It was Latinos and blacks, and it was like.
Now, do we even have like white cats like doing graffiti and breaking and DJing and stuff like that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that other part of the culture, graffiti, was always like white people involved in graffiti. My man Keo, who absolutely, like, after those kids, the Kango Crew, was doing their thing, after they performed, Dougie went on. The original Peter Gunn started rhyming before Peter Gunn from Deja Vu. Mm-hmm. J. Cool did his thing, and then there was this white boy. I saw this cool ass motherfucking white boy with like a Kango and a lucite cane, and his name was Vanilla B. And I'm like, oh, wow, like white boys are doing it. And he was from Brooklyn, Vandermeer, Marcy Project. And like he became my mentor. Like that was my dude. And he was a graffiti artist, break dancer, like all of that. So there was always like different people involved in different parts of the culture. Breakdancing, definitely graffiti. There was a lot of different people doing graffiti. Not only like the K Slade, Drama King. He started out as D-Ro. He was a graffiti legend.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that, man.
He was all city.
Shout out
So
K
K Slade. So that's how he started. And all of like the dudes that I knew were like all-time legends of graffiti, and they were white, black, purple, green. You know, they were just everything. But there was no white people MCing, and there was no white people DJing. And then when I saw Vanilla B, I was like, okay, I could do this.
Right. And I would think, like, to your credit, I mean, whenever you're the first, I know you don't like being called a pioneer, but whenever you're the first to do something, especially something as crazy as like rapping or being an MC, trying to rock the crowd, it got to be scary, right? Or no? You were nervous a little bit, like, holy shit. Because I know I'd be nervous. You put me up in, like, you know, somewhere in South Central and I got to rock the mic. And this is the early days. Like, I'd be nervous a little bit.
I don't think nerves for me played a part in it because it's like when I talk about this, it's weird because I think about, you know, there's people that, you know, like Greg Archer, like he's 100 years old like me. So he understands it because he was in the streets like that. But there are people that are like these young ladies that are watching, like there was nothing sweet about hip hop.
Right.
You know, like it was dangerous. Like it was like, so if you were scared, you wouldn't be there in the first place.
I feel that.
So like going to parties was the only way to meet like hot girls. So you couldn't be scared because if you're gonna roll up on some Dominican chick who lives in the projects,
you can't be no
and you're shook, and you're like some blanquito who's looking crazy shook, like you ain't getting no play. So you know there was no way I was gonna be like soft around anybody. So when I started rhyming and I started like writing rhymes and I started like doing things, like I would watch something on TV and then I would write about it. And then like I remember when Villanova beat Georgetown in 1984, like I wrote a whole rhyme about how Villanova beat Georgetown with Patrick Ewing and Georgetown goes down and the whole thing and all of that. And it was like that was the start.
Now there's something I got to ask you about because I've heard you tell this story numerous times and it involves KDay. Mm-hmm. Of course, you told the infamous story about MC Hammer putting a hit on you.
Right.
And I don't know if you found out about it when you got to the airport or when you were on KDay, but you were on what, Greg Mack's show back in the day, giving out a car?
Yeah, Mac Attack.
Can you kind of explain this to me?
Yeah. So we were told that there was a hit out on us, and I didn't believe it. And through a series of events, we found out it was true. And we come to the morning show because on KDay we were giving away a Jeep, Private Environment Jeep, and we were doing our album party at a place called the Palace right across from the Capitol. And so we were getting ready to do this party, blah, blah, blah. And the night before was the American Music Awards, right? So Hammer won, like, I think 5 awards that night, and they had a big night for his album. And it's Greg Mack, and it's Lisa Canning, and it's this little dirt, you know, house, like in the middle of the oil field. And he's in the middle of the interview, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, we got a special guest on the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, from the new music, you know, from the whatever, American Music Awards, ladies and gentlemen on the phone, MC Hammer."
Oh, so MC Hammer called up.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, this motherfucker just tried to put us on the spot. And I look at Pete, and Pete's, you know, he's making a face, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And Hammer goes, "Hey, Greg Mack, you know, good morning." And Greg Mack's like, "Oh, you know, hey, Hammer, congratulations. You know, you had a big night last night, but I know you got something to say to these dudes. You know, what do you got to say?"
So did Greg Mack set you up? Or
I mean,
I don't want to make it sound malicious, but
no. I mean, he was just doing radio. He was doing good radio. Like it was, you know, whatever. But at the time, like, first of all, this was my first trip to L.A. I'd never been to L.A.
Right.
It was only like my third plane. The third time I was on a plane.
Oh, damn.
You know, and it was my first time. Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick side note question? So back then, because this is obviously before social media, from a East Coast perspective, did you think when you heard about the gangs and stuff like that in LA, was it kind of comical? Because like, was it almost kind of too real to be, or too like good to be true? Like,
no. I mean, because
Okay.
I knew, like, I had friends here, so we knew that the
You knew
gang
what was
thing
up,
was
yeah.
real. You know, we knew it was real, but it just, we did not understand the density of it, and we did not understand the intensity of it. So he starts talking, and he's like, you know, hey, yada, Greg Mack, and he's like, oh, Mac, you know, and yada. And Mac's like, oh, congratulations, Hammer, you know, 5 awards last night, but I know you got something special to say to these dudes. And he's like, yeah, man, well, I don't appreciate, you know, these dudes dissing my mom on their record. And I'm like, yo, I was like, ain't nobody diss your matriarchal B. Like, yo, that's the lyrics. I'm like,
Right.
yo.
Now the lyric was the cactus turn Hammer's mother out.
Yeah, because our album was called The Cactus, and his album was called Turn His Mother Out.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, The Cactus turned Hammer's mother out on some lyrical witty shit, because that's what we were. We were lyricists. We're not, you know, we're not trying to make pop records. We were making street records.
Right.
So, and certainly we would never diss somebody's mom, but, you know, my partner said what he said, and it is what it is. So he took it some type of way. He felt some type of way about it. So anyway, long story short, I tell him, like, yo, but you know what you did? Why don't you man up? Why don't you step to me like a real man? Like, yo, let's, you know. And then I said, in fact, Greg Mack, why don't you go to the phones and find out who LA likes more? And I said, why don't you stop being a bitch, and why don't you just tell LA? And he's like, hey, watch your mouth. I was like, nah, you set me up, bitch. Let's go to the phones. And he was like, all right, let's go to the phones. And gives out the number.
Now, okay, can I ask you another side note question?
Yeah.
In this moment, at this time, I feel like everyone was looking at Hammer like, oh, he's just one of them pop-type rappers.
Right.
Did you have any idea that Hammer was actually kind of low-key a real one?
Nah, of course not.
Okay.
He's dancing in them big-ass Zubas and, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like, nah, like, no, of course not. And it's funny because even, like, before that, I'd met Hammer one time with Houdini just when he was selling his music out the trunk. And, like, I definitely didn't see him like that at all. So the phones start lighting up, and, you know, a couple of calls for us, couple of calls for Hammer, couple of calls for us, couple of calls for Hammer. And I'm noticing Greg is, like, splicing them so that, like, he's trying to put it together. So it's like 5 Hammer calls to 1 third base call. I call him out on that. And I'm like, yo, man, I see you trying to manipulate it. Like, just go to calls live. Go to calls live. Like, you trying to make it sound like we ain't getting no calls. I know how many calls we got now, and I'm beefing. Like, I'm straight beefing.
You were heated at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm beefing. Like, this is not like, I don't care about no radio. Like, so he's going to the phones and, like, nonstop, like 6 calls. Like, yo, Hammer gets the gas face. I love third base. And, yo, shout out to Pete Nice and Serch, yada, yada, yada. And then next call, yo, rolling 60 crib. Yo, we coming to get you. Up, hanged up. And, like, we boogie, right? I mean, literally.
So as soon as you heard that, you knew what it was.
Oh, yeah, no, we boogie. I had my security. Like, we just left. I mean, we didn't even say goodbye to the audience, nothing. Rolling 60 crib, we get out. We jump in a van. We going down the hill at KDay. Right at the bottom of the hill, 2 cars pull up. These 4 dudes come out. They got Mac 11s and AKs. They walk into the car.
I like how you just say that so casually.
Yeah, well,
like,
I mean, you know, and then the dude that was with us to protect us, whose name was Pookie, he gets out the car, he whistles, throws up his signs. Those dudes get back in their car and they take off.
Damn.
Yeah. And I never came back to KDay after that. I never did another interview. I never messed with Joe Cooley. I never messed with Julio G. To me, like, the whole station, like, this was my mentality. The whole station set me up, so I'm not messing with them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now, did it ever get, like, squashed officially? Like, in that time, like, was there anything that squashed it, or was it kind of just open-ended and you just didn't come back for a while? Or?
No. I mean, we kept coming back, but I think that eventually it got out there that it was no longer on, and the bounty was no longer on us.
And how much was the bounty for that he put on you?
50 racks.
Woo!
And it was funny because the dude that we talked to about it that was helping us, he told Russell and Lior, who are our managers and the label people, he said, listen, because you called us, we won't kill them. We'll just break their legs so they could still do television from the waist up. Like, that was a consolation. And
That's nice of them.
Yeah, and they were like, yo, and Russell and Lior were like, no, that's not how this is going to work. So eventually, we had to sneak into our album party as security, and like nobody was allowed to wear blue in the building.
You sneak into your own album party as security.
Yeah. Nobody was allowed to wear blue. Like, I mean, they exited. Anybody who had blue, you could have a blue.
Were they just in the audience waiting for you, pretty much, or that's what you guys suspected anyway?
They just didn't. It wasn't happening.
Right.
And then it wound up being a great party. De La jumped on stage. LL jumped on stage. Fox 5 in New York followed us. Did a thing. It wound up being a great party. And I love this city. I've always gotten love here.
Yeah, LA's always loved third base, man.
Yeah, Ice Cube has always told me some great stories. MC8 has always told me some amazing stories about the influence that the Cactus had on the streets here. And just to think that this year is the 30th anniversary of that album coming out is just, it's like I blinked and it's 30 years. It's crazy.
You ever trip 30 years in this game? Everything you've done, I mean, from obviously starting out as an MC, and then, of course, one of your major achievements is you're credited with discovery. Maybe not discovering Nas, but definitely putting Nas on. Man, of course, the infamous name-dropping takeover. I know who I paid, God, Searchlight Publishing. You ever get tired of people rapping that line to you?
No, not at all. I mean, but, there's truth, and then there's the lyrical truth, and it's two different things.
Did Jay-Z cut you a check?
Yeah, but it wasn't a check like that. It wasn't even close to a check like that. It was. He was trying to get under Nas's skin. The truth of the matter is, I never owned Nas's publishing. That was never. There's, again, inside baseball, you can co-publish somebody or you could administer their publishing. Co-publishing is taking 50%. Administering is 5%. So all I ever do with Nas's publishing with my 5% is just make sure all the legal's right whenever he does a licensing deal or anybody wants to do something. So that's my little take is that I make sure that whoever's administering his publishing is doing it right, so he has no lawsuits, that he has no claims against his publishing, that all the licensing deals, whether it's the Hennessy deal that he just had with his music in that from Illmatic or It Was Written, all of that gets cleared so that he can make the most money he can make.
When did you first meet Nas? Like, did you meet Nas during the demo era, or did you meet him kind of like when the world got introduced to him during like the main source?
So right after that, so I met him in 92. G-Rap had a dude who he was trying to get on named White Boy. And White Boy was this dude who was connected to like some kind of crime family in Queens. And Nas was rolling with G-Rap for a long time. So I would see G-Rap and Nas together all the time. And then Paul, Large Professor, and I were always boys. But Nas just like, from like 92 to like 94 disappeared. Like he was just in Queensbridge. Him, Jungle, Ill Will, may he rest in peace. Like they were just doing them. And it wasn't until they came to the studio when I was doing Back to the Grill again that Nas showed up with like, all his people and was like, hung out and we kind of just, connected and he asked me to help him and that's what I did.
And you had to know. Did you know on first listen, like, this motherfucker
I knew it live at the barbecue.
Right.
I mean, it was obvious.
Anytime you can go to hell for snuffing Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember even as a little kid hearing that lyric, and I was like, holy shit, man. Who's this guy?
Nah, he was incredible. And, to hear that he wanted my help, like, that was the thing that kind of struck me as odd because I didn't believe him. Like, I was just like, okay, whatever, I don't believe you.
Right.
So I said, hey, I told him, I said, I can't help you. I can't look at your contract. I can't do anything for you because you're not signed to me. It's illegal. I can't do it. I said, so why don't you just think about it? And I said, if you want to sign a Searchlight, I'll draw up a one-page agreement that just says I represent you and then I can see your deal and I can help you just structure a better deal.
Right.
And he said, I'll come back tomorrow. There was no way that I thought he was coming back tomorrow. And I came in the next day. OC came in, Chubb Rock, everybody, Red Hot Leviton from the Trackmasters. We were all in the studio. They leave. I'm in the studio late. I'm mixing. And like 11:30 at night, midnight, Nas walks in. And he puts like 3 or 4 blunts on the table. We play the beat. He goes in and he does his lyrics for Back to the Grill Again. And I'm like I'm at that point I was like, yo, just having a verse with him and a record with him, I was just mad happy anyway. And then he came out, we started smoking, we started talking about music, we started talking about records, we started talking about just life. Right. And then he was like, yeah, I'll sign the paper. Wow. So I was like, all right. So he signed, and his lawyer at the time was a friend of mine I knew. So he was like, yeah, he's like, whatever. So he had a deal at Big Beat Records at the time, which was a label under Atlantic. Deal wasn't really kosher.
Right.
I gave them the opportunity to make it right. Because it was my friends, like the guys who ran the label, they were my friends' friends.
Like what kind of deal was Big Beat trying to give? How was like 17, 18 years old at the time, maybe even younger?
He was 18.
What type of deal was Big Beat trying to give an 18-year-old Nas?
$150,000, 3 points, and half his publishing.
Damn.
And a $20,000 advance.
Damn.
So I was like, and I literally said to both of them, because one of the dudes I went to high school with, like we were boys, and the other dude I knew for forever. I was like, guys, I said, this is the greatest MC of all time. Like, you can't treat him like this is 1985.
So you really said that? You knew that back then?
Oh, yeah, verbatim. I said it verbatim. I was like, this is the greatest MC of all time. You can't treat him like this is a deal from 1985. Like, right. I'm not letting him sign the deal that I signed at Def Jam. And they were like, all right, come on, man, come on. I'm like, nah, there's no come on, man. Like, yo, this is a Fugazi deal. Like, this is, like, just make it right. Just make it right. That's all I'm saying. And they went up to Craig Kalman, and they would come back and forth, and we were just kicking it. We were talking about other beats and other music. And then finally, my homeboy, I went to high school where he came down. And he said, yeah, man, that's the best deal. Take it or leave it. And I said, yeah, we leave it.
Right.
And then I went from there. I went to Russell's house. And I played Russell, It Ain't Hard to Tell, and I played him another song we had called I'm a
We're talking about Simmons, right?
Yeah.
For clarity.
Russell Simmons. I'm sorry,
right.
Russell
yeah.
Simmons. Because I had my solo album at Def Jam, and he was with his newly signed A&R person. And he played It Ain't Hard to Tell, and he looked at me, and he's like, yeah, man, this kid sounds like G-Rap, and G-Rap don't sell no records. I was like, cool, later, bye, I'm out. I mean, literally, Russell. I was just like, bye.
Damn, Russell.
But you know what's funny? Because I bust Russell's balls, and he always says something that I respect to this day. He goes, yeah, but I had the chance. He's like, how many people didn't have the chance?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't sign everything.
Right.
But he had the chance. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I went to see Faith, who was my A&R, and I went to Faith Newman at Columbia, and I just said, hey, I signed Nas. And she walked out of the room, and she came back with her boss, and they said, you're not leaving until we make a deal.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, cool. How many points does Billy Joel have? And that's what they did. They laughed. And I said,
oh, shit.
I said, I ain't laughing. How many points did Billy Joel have?
Because you really knew you had one of the greatest MCs ever.
Period.
That's so dope, man.
I just said, yo, we ain't taking no sucker deal. This is not 1988. Like, how many points did Billy Joel have? And it got a little testy, and I was like, then we're not signing. It's like, it's simple. We're not signing.
Now, in your mind, when you're negotiating all this, do you think you were shooting for the stars, or did you really know, like, no, we can get this? Somebody was going to give us what we want.
I thought that because of the relationship I had with Faith, because of the amount of records I sold at Sony, because, Pop Goes the Weasel, Third Base was through the Def Jam deal through Sony, and because of the amount of money that I made that label, I had leverage.
Right.
So
okay.
I felt like with that leverage and with the fact that I had put hits through that system, and because I knew, the regionals, because I knew the radio department, because I knew the retail department, I knew I could maneuver this record and do what I needed to do right by him. Because the one thing I wasn't gonna do, like, and I told my wife this, and I'm so proud of myself that I did this. I wasn't gonna be the Jew that took advantage of a black man. I wasn't gonna be Ahmed Erdogan. I wasn't gonna be Morris Levy. I wasn't gonna be none of them motherfuckers.
Right.
Like, I just couldn't. The culture gave me so much. Like, there was just no way I was gonna take advantage of him, and I was only gonna do what he asked me to do. And all Nas ever asked me to do is help him on his first album. That's it. So they had to bring in Donnie Ienner, who was the chairman of Sony. And they were like, look, and Donnie's trying to tell me, look, it's not going to happen. You know, you're talking about a legacy artist here. You know, what he's got, like, we can't justify it. And I was like, all right, so I'm leaving. And I got up and they were like, okay. And so he got 23 points and no publishing. And I said, you know what? Because Faith and I knew everybody, so we knew that once people heard we had Nas, we could probably get the album done pretty cheap.
Right.
So I made sure that we had very little overhead on the album, because I knew everybody would just want to do it just to do it.
Right.
So I didn't want him to have a lot of recoupment. So I kept it real low. And I made sure he got a nice bag. So he got 50 racks just for signing. And he wasn't even there. He just 50 racks. So then I went to Zamba. And I knew the president at Zamba, and I said, I just signed Nas at Columbia, and what can you give me? And he and I sat there on a piece of paper. He said, how many songs are you going to write? I said, all of them. He said, how many songs are you going to produce? I said, none of them. He said, okay, we'll give you $250,000.
Woo!
And I said, well, how much are you going to take? He said, 50%. I said, no, you're not. I said, we'll give you 20. And he was like, well, I can't do $250,000 for 20. I said, bye. I sit down. So we wound up doing 25% of his publishing, $250,000, and I took 5% of his admin with no advance. So then I went to Queensbridge, and I went to knock on Nas's door, and his mom was sitting there, may she rest in peace in him, and I handed him 2 checks, one for $250,000 and one for $50,000, and I said, now you can move your mom out the bridge.
Damn.
And he went and moved to the Long Island, got her a townhouse, and we made the album. We had some bumps making the album in terms of like people bootlegging the album and promo people, spreading the album too thin. And we found like this bootlegger had a garage with like 60,000 bootleg cassettes of the album. And he did 165,000 albums first week, and he was recouped the third day.
Whoa, shit.
You know what I mean? So everything was, he was a millionaire 30 days into his deal.
Wow.
You know what I mean? He was a millionaire on a major label. And then the next album, we basically were like, yo, let's take it to the next level.
And that's crazy too, because during that time, like, artists that were on majors weren't getting millions like that. A lot of them were getting jerked. So
yeah. I wasn't gonna let him get jerked.
Yeah, and I mean that says a lot about you, but I mean, for Nas, that's also a blessing, because I mean, to come in the game like that and be able to do that so quick, like, damn, man.
Yeah, so it's all good.
Serch, I know you're coming up with the book, right? Because I'm
not. I'm actually not going to do a book.
You're not going to do it no more?
No, I'm going to do a podcast.
Oh, even better.
It's called the Timeless Podcast. We're building a company right now. We're raising some significant dollars, and we're going to do an entire podcast company.
Well, just know, I can't wait. I will be subscribed and tuned in every week.
Thank you.
Really, I wanted to say real quick too, and we don't got to go into the whole story.
No, it's fine.
But R.I.P. Bushwick Bill, because he just passed recently, and you had the craziest Bushwick Bill story that I know you've told. We don't got to get into it. If you want to, we definitely can. But
no, but I will tell you this. The one thing that I think about a lot more than anything else is like, I've been blessed to be around a lot of outside the box thinkers. Like, I've really, seen, Echo Unlimited get built from Mark doing graffiti shirts in his garage.
Right.
To when I left, we were like at, $985 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Doing promotion and building Nouveau from 60 cases a month to 60,000 cases a month, and doing that, and building all these companies that I had equity in and all of this. And I walked away from the music game because I was just disgusted by it. Right. I was just disgusted by the politics. I was disgusted by these bullshit 360 deals. I was disgusted by the industry. But when I did the White Rapper show, DSPs were just coming into fruition, and there was a company called The Orchard, brand new company. They were reaching out to every person, man, woman, and child, and they just wanted people to get on. So I had a bunch of unreleased masters that I owned that were like Third Base and MC Serch unreleased masters that I owned entirely. So I said, hey, I got this show. Finale's coming out. Why don't I buy some advertising time on VH1? I'll put out this album, and why don't we do a deal? And they were like, cool. And they said, well, what are you offering? And just so everybody knows out there, whatever somebody offers you, the first offer, you walk away. And the first thing you should always say is, I'm incredibly disappointed by that offer, but I'm going to go home and think about it.
Right.
I don't give a fuck what that offer is. You look them dead in the face and go,
even if it's a good offer, you say that?
I'm incredibly disappointed by that offer, but I will go home and think about it.
Now, why do you do that? What's the rationale behind that? Or what does that do to the other party involved? Like,
they go, shit, why does he feel like that? Wait, maybe we did offer him a fucked up offer. Maybe, wait, hold up. Maybe 99% of the time, they will up the offer before you get in your car.
Damn. I'm using that one because I got to renegotiate a contract pretty soon.
Yeah.
So, man,
Yeah.
I mean.
No, that's exactly right. So anyway, so I told them, nah. So when we did our deal with Orchard is like crazy. We own 80 or 88% of everything we put out. But I didn't even wasn't even thinking about putting out music. Like I was like, whatever. So I put out this album, we promoted it a little bit, money comes in and trickles in and out. It's mailbox money for the rest of my life, whatever. So about a year ago, my daughter started a rock band called Pom Pom Squad. She's at NYU. And she started going through, doing shows in Brooklyn in front of 10 people, then in front of 20 people, then in front of 30. Now she's doing 400 or 500 seaters, selling them out. She's looking for labels, and she's, first she started with this label, and they want half her publishing, and they want this, and just the same thing, like the same hustle, the same bullshit, but now it's with, rock bands because there's no real value they claim or whatever. So I said, wait a minute, I have an entire platform. Like I have a distribution platform. She don't need a fucking indie label.
Do it herself,
Do it herself. So we put out our first album, Hate It Here. We put out our first EP. She did 600,000 downloads, and she made like almost 100 G's, right? Mm-hmm. Because she makes 100% of what comes through there. I'm not going to take anything from my daughter. So she makes 100% of everything that comes through there. So my wife and I were like, well, wait a minute. Why don't we offer to people that we love? We'll take a 5% admin fee. Mm-hmm. And let these artists make more than anybody else. So I have friends that are doing really well. They're at Empire with Ghazi, and I love Ghazi. They're at other, and I'm hearing these deals, and they're fair deals. Like they're, Ghazi's giving 70%, they're taking 30. Right. Other people, we take 5%. 5%. So that's it. And all the money goes to you. 100% of money. So even my 5%, you have to allocate it to me. So when you set up a deal with us, you get a username and password. You put in all the information yourself, all of it. Right. And then when it comes to laying out the accounting, you put in your account and the money that goes into your account, and then you say, okay, of this 83%, 95 of it goes to you, and 5% of it goes to Serch and Chantel. And then you put in my routing, and that's it.
So super simple.
Super simple, done.
It's
Easy.
pretty dope. I know Steve Stout has this thing with United Masters too, which I don't know how similar it is, but I know it's an outside of the box kind of new model. And I just think it's dope how these people in the industry are starting to make ways for artists to, they're doing business a lot more honestly and allowing these cats to get paid and making it simple and so it's pretty dope.
And obviously these artists keep their masters. We don't own your masters. We don't license your masters. We have nothing to do with publishing. But the other thing is within 48 hours, you're on all the DSPs, Spotify, Tidal, everything within 48 hours because we have a priority release schedule with Orchard. So Brad and those guys, man, shout out to Orchard. I love those guys. And anything we put out gets on the DSPs. Now, what you do with the DSPs, how you negotiate, how in terms of playlists and creating those relationships, that's on you. If you need my help, I help you, and the fee is free. And if you need
Speaking
to go
of
to radio,
some good deals, Serch. Like,
so
damn.
and if you go to radio and you need a budget to go to radio, that you got to pay for that.
Right.
And I will help you, and our fee for that is free. Because the thing is, I don't need that money. Like I don't. First of all, I don't want it. Forget it. Even if I need it, I don't want it.
Right.
That's A. But B, I'm only putting out artists that I truly love. Like I'm not trying to sign the next hottest blank.
Right.
Because I don't want to deal with that bullshit. Like I'm not trying to deal with fucking Homeboy X. I never would have signed Lil Nas X. And God bless him. Like that's dope.
You don't
That's
got no
dope.
Wranglers on your booty?
You know what I'm saying? Like dope. Great for him.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, but Wrangler, but here's the thing: Wrangler gave him $17 million. Like, how can you knock his hustle?
He's
Like,
dope.
great, good.
You're dope, Lil Nas X.
Even if he's not dope,
17
still
million
great.
from Wrangler out of all brands is dope.
absolutely.
So I take back what
absolutely.
I said.
But I would never have signed Lil Nas X. Now, if
wait, is it because low key
No,
he
it
got
has
the
nothing to
Nas
do-
name,
no,
and you're like, oh,
no,
come on,
no,
man.
No, but if Lil Nas X was Nasir's son, I would have put him out because it's family,
Right.
right? And whatever would have happened, the benefit of that would have been the benefit of that, but it still would have been 5%, and that's it. So we're only dealing with people that we love, artists that we love. So we're putting out this kid, Constantine XL, CXL, who's my homegirl, Tembisa. It's her artist who she's family from the Bay, used to be a Gavin. Like, so we're putting that record out. Pom Pom Squad's records. The second album's out. Heavy just got added to Alt Nation. My daughter's doing about 30,000 streams a week. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's just what it is. And when my daughter calls me and says, hey, I need you to read this deal, I can read a deal. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read a deal. I've been around enough deals that I can see where the red flags are. And if she needs help with a tour, I can certainly call Guy Osiri, or I can certainly call Ethan Levinson at AEG, or I certainly, hey, you should check this girl out. You should check this band out. Or, whatever it is.
Right.
But it's the same thing for our people. And the reason I say that is this. The one thing I'm really happy about in my career is that I have been able to be flexible. It's not about being great at one thing. It's about being really good at a lot of things. And even with this platform that we have that we're not promoting, and actually you're the first person I haven't really talked about it outside of my little crew.
Right.
Even that is controlled by my wife. My name's not even on it. You know why? Because I need her permission to sign a band. It's not about me anymore. Nothing is called Searchlight anymore. There is no Searchlight. Searchlight's dead. Because it's not about me anymore.
Right.
I don't want it to be Searchlight, blah, 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 and this and that. It's 4MC. It's Michael, Mayana, Miles, Mia, and Chantel. It's a family-run business.
That's what's up.
You know
That's
what I'm
dope,
saying?
dude. That's
and
really
it's
dope.
not about me. My wife runs the business, so anything I want to do, I have to meet with her. She is the president. And if she says no, it's a no. And I keep it moving. It's not about me anymore. So this deal or this deal or this deal or, working with Rostrum and helping 20 and helping Rocky and helping Lambo and helping Problem and helping Life, like, that's not about money. I don't own their masters. I don't own their shit. Like, I'm a hired person.
Right.
I work for the label. The only thing I am partners with is the top shelf stuff, which is the old school stuff that sounds like old school stuff that is new school stuff. And reinventing how Urban AC looks at, like, our classic artists.
Right.
But besides that, like, everything I do is because I want to, because I still want to be flexible. And it goes back to relevancy. It goes back to those basement tapes that I listened to. It goes back to not wanting to be a pioneer, not wanting to be that bitter-ass artist who's like, you owe me a career, and if it wasn't for me, fuck all that, man. Here's the bottom line. Your value is based on what it is today, not what it was. If you continue to add value to this culture, then you are valuable. If you were an asset to this culture in the beginning, then you are a memory of this culture. And that's okay.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not going to have Vlad call me, there wouldn't be a G-Eazy because of me. That's bullshit.
Is that what Vlad said?
G-Eazy would have existed regardless because he had incredible MCs in the Bay Area that would have taught him how to rhyme. It has nothing to do with Serch. It has nothing to do with me. Eminem would have been incredible with or without third base, because he was being raised by Proof, by MC Breed, by Tupac, by Biggie, by Wu-Tang. It's not about because we did blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That was our period of time. It was amazing. It was great. But I always tell people, I got jerked by Def Jam, but if it wasn't for Def Jam, I would not be who I am, and I would not have been able to sign Nas. I would not have been able to work with Mark Echo. I would not have been able to go to JLB. I would not have been able to build Nouveau. I would not have been able to do the VH1, the rapper show. I would not have been able to be in Bamboozled. I would not have been able to.
I
do,
forgot
you know what I'm
all
saying?
about Bamboozled.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Man, I used to love
these,
that movie.
I would not have been able to do any of those things. So that was my dues. But moving forward, I made sure nobody paid the dues that I paid.
Right. Well, yeah, in a fucked up kind of way, it's almost like you had to go through what you went through with Def Jam so you could be a blessing to the people you came across.
That's exactly
and
right.
a lot of times it's the other way around. A lot of times people jerk people because they got jerked. So
right. No,
yeah.
it's bad form. You know what I'm saying? It's bad form. And to see KDay now 30 years later, and to see it on the air in a different iteration and being able to, in some ways, represent the legacy of being the very first 24-hour rap station in this country and still be able to play hip-hop.
Right.
I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing to me. And to be, 30 years deep after the Cactus and be here and to be a part of the culture still and still, help artists like Big Sean, Farruko, Bad Bunny, Jay Alvarez, Ace Hood, Khaled, all of these artists that we've done brand integration for, marketing for, promotion for. It is the flexibility of being able to say, you know what? I don't want to just do one thing. Right. I don't want to do one thing great. I want to do a lot of things really good.
Damn. Well, hey, Serch, thank you, man.
Yeah, man.
It's been a pleasure, honestly.
No worries, man.
It's definitely been an interview I've wanted to So you got to definitely come back, man.
Yeah, no
Because we
doubt.
need more of this game. We need more of these stories.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh,
No doubt.
it's crazy, man. 935 KDay, Serch, doing a lot of things right now. No at night. Peace.